Good evening YouTube, my name is Rob Pollard and I'm the developer for Sojour, the solo VTT. This is a relatively short video to cover off some brand new map functionality that's been added. In essence, we can now tilt the maps and it does come in handy for various circumstances. Because one thing that perhaps isn't very obvious is the mapping pane that you see on the right in Sojour. It's actually a 3D mapping pane. It's just that I choose to display the maps in a 2D kind of a way because that's the way people are used to playing them. But the engine, which is my own custom engine, does support 3D. So I thought I'd take advantage of that, and for the first bit of 3D functionality, I'm going to allow you to tilt your maps. It's quite simple. You can toggle on and off using this button up here, and it works for any map. You just click it once and it tilts it. And everything just works from this new tilted thing, including all of the measurement tools. They're all in 3D and so forth. It just works, and you can drag tokens across. We're going to move her, and notice how it tells you the precise size and where it's going to be when she comes down. So it works really well. Now 3D isn't necessarily so handy for I guess tactical battles like this, but it is handy for quite a few other things. And by the way, these maps remember their settings. So if this one's looking straight down, this one's in 3D. If I exit Sojour, come back in, it'll remember which ones are tilted, which ones aren't. Speaking of tilts, when you tilt a map, it tilts to a default angle. That's under map settings, and by default it's 45 degrees. You can change that here. So for example, if we want to go for a steeper tilt, say we go for 70, hit OK, and that will increase the tilt. I'm not entirely sure why you'd want 70, but I'm sure someone out there would like the idea of a 70-degree map. And of course you can always set that back to 45. Now, where I've found this shines particularly well is, I guess, for your bigger maps like this, the campaign maps, because when you tilt it, it enables you to see a little bit more of the map at once. Now, a few things happen when you tilt a map, which I should go over. Firstly, you lose the range scale, bottom left. So if I go back here, you can see the range scales here. But as soon as you tilt it, it goes. And the reason for that is it doesn't make much sense to have a range scale on something where the scale is actually different throughout the length of the map because of the way it's being viewed. However, because this map has been scaled in Sojour, you can still go ahead and measure things, so you haven't lost the scaling in that respect. And of course, it's all in this nice 3D angle, so yeah, it's a pretty good system in that respect. And I say maps like this I think look particularly good in 3D. And again, the system remembers your settings. And once more, if you drag a token across, it automatically tilts it. So you know what it's going to look like as soon as you drop it down. And then you just move her along, and away you go. So it works just like when the map's in 2D. It's just that it's got that tilt, which I think looks pretty good for maps like this. It's almost like you're kind of flying over the territory. It's just pretty nifty. But there is one other piece of functionality that the mapping system has with regards to tilting, and that is custom tilts. And what I'll do for that, I'll show you that with a Mongoose Traveller Starship deck plan. Now, Mongoose are quite famous for producing isometric deck plans like this. Now, I know in their reprints they've moved away from this, so they've gone towards proper top-down maps, but they do still have a number of these isometric maps, and they're really well drawn. It's just they can be a little bit problematic to roleplay on. However, Sojour has the ability to tilt these isometric maps so that the tilt matches the grid that it was drawn on, and the end effect is it it makes this 2D drawing kind of look 3D. And I'll show you now. What we'll do, we'll import this. And for those that like what I see here, this is Mongoose Travelers, the Pirates of Drinax. Excellent series of adventures. Pop over to the Mongoose site and you can go and buy it from there. But we're going to capture this map for use in Sojour. So let's do that now. Capture and screenshot. One thing Sojour can do is it can capture maps and tokens from screenshots. And I think that's about what we want. We'll just call it test because I'm going to get rid of it later on, but here we go. So that's our map. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to scale it. It's a little bit low resolution, but that's because of the picture. It doesn't matter for the purposes of this demo. Now, Traveller Starship maps, each square is 1.5 meters, so let's get that scaled now. So that's 1.5. Next, yeah, leave it on red. Register scale. Let's zoom in a bit. So it's about from here to here is 1.5. Excellent. So we've scaled our map. So the advanced feature that Sojour provides with regards to map tilting is it provides measurement tools to allow you to provide custom tilts on a per map basis. And these custom tilts override the default tilt that you see here, the 45-degree one. You can always tell if a map has a custom tilt on because this button will be enabled, and that's one for clearing the tilt. Now, to put a custom tilt in, all you need to do is click the register map tilt button, and you end up with this cursor, which I don't know how easy it is to see. See that three-prong cursor? And this is what we're going to use to align our map. Now, the way it works is you want to align the green and the red with your grid of your map, and you want the blue to be pointed upwards. Now, if you use the mouse wheel, you can change the size of it to something a little bit more manageable. The size doesn't make any difference at all to map registration. It's just there, so you can set it to a size that will help you with your alignment. So we're going to pick a bit with, that's probably a good place to do it. They actually got a nice bit of map grid. And the idea is to align this with the map grid. And you get given two sets of rotations. You can either rotate around the red axis or you can rotate around the green axis. To rotate around the red axis, to rotate the red axis rather than rotate around it, use the shift key in the mouse wheel. See it rotating? So what we're going to do, we're going to rotate it so that the red axis is aligned broadly with the grid, which it is. So the next thing to do is to align the green axis, and we can tilt that using the control shift key. And notice that the blue line, which it represents up, is now starting to move up. Now what you'll find is the two rotation axes, they're kind of push-pull and interact with each other. And what your job is you're trying to alter this, the rotations, so that this matches the grid. And you have to do a little bit of push and pulling between the two axes, so let's get that on there. And the idea is to try and get it parallel. So let's turn the red one on. So the red one's kind of lined up. Let's try and line up the green one. And, I think we're about there. There you go. Is that right? Can we get it any better? There you go. That's it there. So now we've aligned this with the axis of our map. And all you need to do, once you're happy with the alignment, and make sure blue's pointing upwards because that's your upper axis, you hit the left mouse button and that registers a special tilt with this map. And this tilt is done in such a way as it aligns with the plane that this isometric map was drawn in. And what I found with these kind of maps is it gives it an almost like 3D effect to it, like you're actually there in the ship. It's kind of crazy really, because when you consider these are actually two-dimensional maps, it really gives that feeling of it being a proper 3D map. And of course if we drag characters to it, they assume part of that 3D-ness, almost like they were there on the map. course, we can drag some more characters down here. Let's maybe we've got Tarquin, we're missing Steve Carnell. Let's pop Steve on there. And there you go. And I say, playing with these isometric maps like this, it really does make them appear like almost 3D. It's kind of crazy. I mean, they're obviously not 3D. They were drawn as 2D maps, but because Sojour's tilted them very precisely to match the tilt of the drawing itself, it just gives you that illusion of a real 3D map. And like I say, it just works really, really well. And this works, by the way, with all isometric maps. It just needs to be isometric, and then you can register these precise tilts. And the tilts remembered for this map, you can tell because the clear map tilt registration button is now lit up, so you can clear this tilt if you wish. Changing the global tilt in settings does not affect special tilts for individual maps. Plus, you can toggle things on and off. So that's it, just straightforward looking down. And if you decide you want its custom tilt back again, there's no need to measure it again because the system remembers the custom tilt you gave this map. All you need to do is hit the button there and away you go. And I say I find it really good for my games because it really gives this pseudo 3D look to your maps. Even though they're not 3D, it just makes them look like they're 3D. I think it's an awesome feature, but like I said, that's just obviously a personal view. And of course, if you decide you want to get rid of a custom tilt on a map, you just hit the clear custom tilt button and everything returns back to normal. And that's gone again. If you want to put in a custom tilt, you have to re-register a tilt for this map. And custom tilts can be used for all sorts of things, like as you know, the default we set up for our maps is 45 degrees, but say this Sarta map, we wanted a little bit more for it, you can again put in a custom tilt for it, and rather than aligning directly with a grid, you can just tilt the green axis over by how far you want the map tilted. So I don't know, maybe you want it tilted that much. Okay, and there you go, it's now tilted by the exact amount you wanted, and the system remembers it. So when you tilt on, tilt off, it always tilts to the custom tilts that you've got set up for your map. And the reason why Sojour can do this is because its engine for its graphics engine is three-dimensional. It's a custom engine I wrote called Ionian. And it was never written for Sojour, it was written for another project of mine called Ancient Armies. And I thought, hang on, this thing does 3D, surely I should be taking advantage of it. So I thought, yeah, let's go do this. And I guess this is one advantage Sojour has over perhaps, say, some of its competitors, the fact that it does have 3D to it. And one of the intents for the future is I want the ability to import 3D models so that you can actually import 3D figures, and then you can designate a particular map to support figures, and then you'll be moving literal 3D figures around on a 3D map. It should look pretty good, but that's a future enhancement. That's not in right now. All we got in right now is the map tilts. So that's what I want to cover off with map tilts. I hope you found this useful. If you need to remember what the keys were for registration, it's all on the little helper window here, so you can read it off there. Or alternatively, just go to the manual, and the manual has been updated to include map tilting. If I can find, there, go tilting maps, if I click that, and this will cover off everything you need to know about tilting maps and how the cursor works. So even if you forget what's in this video, all the help is to hand here. So that's what I wanted to show you. I hope you folks will find this useful. I do have some more map enhancements inbound, though I don't want to talk about those because I think you're going to be pretty happy with them when you see them. And then after that, the next bit of work are the calendars, because I want to give people the ability to have rolling calendars, because Sojour can't do that right now. And also the tables, the result tables. I've got 2 new tables I want to add as well. And then once that's done, we'll look at other stuff as and when we need to. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.